Hello, this is Mrs. Ostrike. Today we will be working on lesson 9.1, Relate Tenths and Decimals. The essential question is, how can you record tenths as fractions and decimals? Let's unlock the problem. Ty is reading a book about metamorphic rocks. He has read 7/10 of the book. What decimal describes the part of the book Ty has read? So our essential question is to relate 7/10 as a decimal. A decimal is a number with one or more digits to the right of the decimal point. You can write tenths and hundredths as fractions or decimals. Okay. Let's begin with one way. You can use a model and a place value chart to show a fraction as a decimal. So here's the fraction 7/10. So think, the model is divided into 10 equal parts. Each part represents 1/10. Let's shade in 7/10 of this model. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we're going to shade in 7/10 of this model. Okay, and we're going to write 7/10 as a fraction. 7/10. We will read this fraction as 7/10. We can also use a place value chart to place 7/10 on the place value chart. There are no ones in 7/10, so we will place a 0 here. The decimal will divide the whole numbers, and the decimal point will divide the whole numbers and the tenths. There are 7/10, so we'll put a 7 in the tenths column. And there is no hundredths, so we will place a 0 there. So to write 7/10, we will write it as 0.7. That is the fraction 7/10 written as a decimal. We read it the exact same way. 7/10. It's read the exact same way. 7/10. Okay. Another way is to use a number line. Label the number line with decimals that are equivalent to the fraction. Locate the point 7/10. They have already created a fraction line for you, a number line for you, and they add the fractions 0/10 all the way to 10/10 or 1. Now what they ask you to do is label the number line with decimals. So 1/10 is labeled decimal 0.1, 2/10 is labeled 0.2, 3/10 is labeled 0.3, 4/10 is labeled 0.4, 5/10 is labeled 0.5, 6/10 is labeled 0.6, 7/10 is 0.7, 8/10 is 0.8, and 9/10 is 0.9. So as you can see, 7/10 written as a fraction is the same as 0.7. So Ty has read 0.7 of the book. How can you write 0.1 as a fraction or 1/10 as a fraction? You can write 1/10 as a 1 in the numerator and a 10 in the denominator. This represents 1/10 of the number. So 1/10 as a fraction is written the same way as 0.1 as a decimal.